If you've been following gaming news lately, you'll probably know that Sony plans to stop producing physical PlayStation games in 2028. And as if that wasn't enough, an unverified report now claims that the CEOs of Sony and PlayStation mocked the backlash, apparently referring to gamers as fools. Whether that comment is genuine or not, the fact that so many people believed it says quite a lot about Sony's relationship with its players right now. For me, this announcement hasn't just raised questions about PlayStation's future. It has confirmed that walking away was the right decision. But before I explain why, we need to look at what Sony's figures actually tell us. Sony points to its own figures, which say that as much as 85% of full game purchases are now digital. But that number needs some context. It includes every full game bought through the PlayStation Store, including smaller games and digital-only releases that never offered a physical choice in the first place. So what happens when players are actually given that choice? Leaked internal data reportedly showed that 76% of God of War Ragnarok sales were physical. In the UK, physical copies accounted for 54% of Spider-Man 2 sales and 45% of Resident Evil 4 remake sales. These aren't niche physical releases being kept alive by a handful of collectors. These are major, single-player games selling millions of copies. And when players are given a genuine choice, a huge number are still choosing the disc. So when Sony throws out that 85% figure as evidence that physical games are no longer wanted, it doesn't tell us the full story. It feels as though Sony is pushing its own agenda without giving us the complete picture. And when it's removing this much consumer choice, that isn't good enough. On the surface, Sony stands to make a significant amount of money from this move. No discs means no manufacturing or distribution costs, no second-hand market, and no physical copies competing with the price on the PlayStation Store. But there may be one important complication. Sony says new games will still be available digitally through retailers, and it has suggested that some could be sold as a code inside a box. Now, for those of us who actually want a physical game, an empty case with a download code inside is not an acceptable replacement. But it could mean Sony won't have complete control over what we pay. Retailers may still discount those codes, and websites such as Shop2 and Loaded already sell PlayStation Wallet credit below its face value. So even if a game costs £70 on the PlayStation Store, discounted credit could bring the real price down. And competing retailers might be able to offer even better deals. The problem is that Sony hasn't properly explained how any of this will work. Will UK retailers receive individual game codes? Will they be allowed to set their own prices? Will those codes remain available years later? Will every publisher participate? Or will the PlayStation Store eventually become the only reliable place to buy certain games? There are still far too many unanswered questions about what this digital future actually looks like. So far, this entire situation has been poorly handled by Sony, and the backlash has now led to a week-long PlayStation blackout, taking place from the 23rd to the 30th of August. How effective that will be remains to be seen. And I know people want to take action, so I'm not trying to derail what they're doing. But we also need to be realistic about what happens afterwards. If everyone logs back in once the week is over and carries on buying games exactly as they did before, then ultimately the blackout will only be a minor blip in the grand scheme of things. 1 week of inactivity might get Sony's attention, but it won't change anything unless it leads to a longer-term change in how people spend their money. And that is the difficult part, because asking someone to stay off their PlayStation for a week is one thing. Asking millions of people to permanently change the way they buy and play games is something else entirely. I cancelled my PlayStation Plus subscription, sold my PS5, and sold the physical games I had for it. I had around 30 digital games that I had paid for tied to that account. And once you include everything I had claimed through PlayStation Plus, that library was somewhere in the region of 350 games. I knew what I was leaving behind, and I still decided it was time to move on. Now, I'm absolutely not saying that anyone else should do the same. This wasn't some knee-jerk reaction to Sony's recent announcement. It was something I had been considering for quite a while. For years, we haven't really been getting the complete game on the disc anyway. There's nearly always a day one patch, followed by what feels like endless updates, DLC, and more content constantly being pushed at us. I was paying for things I didn't want or need. I had games sitting there that I had already started, but knew I was never going to finish. And eventually, I decided to hit the reset button and start again. That led me to PC gaming, and honestly, I'm really enjoying the experience. Gaming has become fun again. And I think that's the most important thing in all of this: having fun. Whether that means losing yourself in a world on your own, playing online with friends, competing against complete strangers, or just finding something that helps you switch off for a few hours. Gaming is bigger than any one console or company. We have more games, more platforms, and more ways to play than ever before. So walking away from PlayStation didn't mean walking away from gaming. It just meant finding a different way to enjoy it. And right now, that was the right choice for me. Now, even though being a PC gamer means I purchase all of my games digitally, I fully stand behind everyone fighting to keep physical media alive.
We cannot just sit back and allow physical games to disappear without questioning what could be lost along with them. This isn't only about how we choose to buy our games today. It's also about preserving gaming history for the future. If the industry goes entirely digital, that becomes much more difficult. Games can be removed from stores, licenses can expire, and servers can eventually be shut down. And without physical copies still out there, parts of gaming history could simply disappear over time. So yes, I buy my games digitally now, but that doesn't mean I want physical media taken away from everyone else. Digital should remain a choice, not become the only choice because it suits the companies selling the games. But what about you? Are you staying with PlayStation, waiting to see what happens? Or has Sony finally pushed you towards something else? PlayStation gave me decades of incredible experiences that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. But now, it's time for me to say goodbye.
Thanks for being here, guys. It really does mean a lot. If you enjoyed hanging out with me, stick around. There's plenty more to come. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell icon if you want to stay up to date. And I will see you in the next one.